One thing that comes up all the time when you look at rooftop tent reviews is that leveling the car is actually much more of a hassle than you think it's going to be. So Land Rover Passion have really kindly sent me their Easy Lift product. And this is interesting because there's actually, I think as far as I can see, there's two products on the market. There's the X Lifter and there's the Easy Lift. Now the X Lifter is really well known about, everyone knows it, it's really expensive. But the Easy Lift I didn't know about until I did a bit more digging and found this, and it comes in at way less money than the X Lifter. And I think essentially it does pretty much exactly the same thing. And what's interesting about the Easy Lift is it doesn't have to be visible in the car. It can work purely over Bluetooth through your phone, and that's really nice. It does come with a controller, but for me I'm actually pretty happy just using it through my phone and keeping the whole thing out of sight. And what it does is it fakes the signals from the air suspension to the air suspension controller, so that the car then corrects it and will self-level. And I think it's because of this that the Land Rover, or any kind of Land Rover from about 2005 onwards, they all have air suspension, unless some heathen has taken it out and replaced it with coils. It just solidifies these as the absolutely best choice for overlanding if you've got a roof tent or you're going to sleep in the back. Being able to just push a button and have it self-level is such a game-changing thing. This completely avoids the need for any kind of ramps to be carried around in the car. After testing the roof tent a couple of times, it's really interesting how rare it is actually to find level ground. I booked a campsite pitch that was designed for caravans, and it said it was level, it said it was a level pitch. And it definitely wasn't, and this was before I had this thing, so I couldn't self-level the car, and it was just so annoying knowing that with the air suspension it has the capability to do it. But without this Easy Lift from Land Rover Passion installed, I just couldn't level the car without messing about driving it onto some bricks. But it does just go to show how rare it is to find level ground. Obviously it's not just the fact that this has got air suspension that makes this possible, it's the fact that the suspension setup includes this incredible range between minimum and maximum, between its off-road height and its access mode height, that lets it actually have the ability to correct for quite extreme angles. Now, obviously there is always going to be a limit. You can't just park it on a massive slope and expect it to level. Obviously if you think in terms of the front being at minimum suspension and the back being at off-road height, it can do that, and that gives you the ability to level on some pretty serious slopes. But what's quite interesting about it is it doesn't work if it's only one wheel. So if you were to like park with one wheel in a puddle and the other three were kind of on level ground, it doesn't really correct for that. The way it works best, I found, is when it's correcting for the same kind of difference, either front to back or side to side. You can just rock up to any kind of off-grid campsite, push a button on your phone, and the car will self-level, and you get a good night's sleep. It's actually really simple to install. It's a little bit of a hassle to actually get to the thing that you need to unplug. It's behind a panel under the steering wheel and it's a bit awkward to get to. But in principle, all you're doing is literally unplugging two connectors, and then you put this thing in between that. So there's a male and a female connector that comes with this unit, and you just reconnect it in line in between, and then you stick it back to the inside of a panel. And the unit itself obviously then is sort of fixed to the position of the car, so that when you calibrate it, it knows if the car is level. There's actually a little gyro sensor inside the unit that's used to generate those fake height signals that it sends back to the car, so the car can then do that self-leveling. And then it's just as simple as connecting to Bluetooth on your phone, and you can rock up to any campsite, push a button in the app, and the car will self-level. So before you set it to self-level, you've got to make sure the car is in its normal ride height. So I've just had it on off-road mode for this track. I'm just going to put it down to normal mode now so that it's ready, and then obviously it can go up or down to correct for the leveling. So obviously the main idea with rooftop tent camping is just how fast they are to put up and down, and that's especially true with hard shell roof tents like this one from YouNGHUNTER. The reality is if you've got to turn up to a pitch and level the car, that's a massive hassle. You've got to get your ramps out and you've got to work out where they've got to go, and it takes the simplicity and speed out of that process. But this device puts it all back in, so we're back to having this idea of really super fast pitch times with this setup. So what's useful to note is this thing doesn't actually reprogram anything in the car. All it simply does is fake the signal. So it connects in line in the existing system, connects up, and it just fakes the signals from the height sensors on each corner. And then it's the car that does the normal self-leveling. So it's totally reversible. You can literally just unplug this and the car is exactly back to stock. It can't mess anything up. It's not reprogramming anything. I really like that about it. In fact, they actually include this little bypass cable that lets you just quickly disconnect the unit if there's ever a fault with it, put the bypass cable back in, and everything is connected up exactly from factory. You haven't actually got to take all the main connectors back in and out if you did need to quickly take it out of the system. In addition to being able to self-level the car, the Easy Lift also gives you these options where you can manually set the ride height to be different, and that means it will actually stay in that ride height irrespective of your speed. So if you did want to bypass the Land Rover speed limit for off-road mode, you can do that with this. I don't think that's necessarily a very sensible thing to do, but it is possible. And what's nice about this is that it doesn't interfere with the existing ride height adjustment. So essentially, if you tell it that you want to go really high in your app and then you put it in off-road mode with the switch, then it'll be at the highest possible combination. So essentially that gives you the option to put it into super giraffe height yourself. You haven't got to jam a block of wood underneath it to make it go into the emergency giraffe height mode. So it's quite cool being able to see it do that.